Greetings again, Bill Hosko here, out in Liberty County, Montana. I'm down near the shore of this 15-mile-long lake that's just down the road from my place. Absolutely quiet, except for some geese and some ducks. 2 weeks ago, I made a video talking about sharing with you 10 reasons why St. Paul needs and deserves another mayor. And I'm doing another video with 10 more reasons, if I may. I moved out here in late July of this year. It's now, I think, October 30th today. I'm kind of losing track. I know it's a Thursday. And St. Paul is my hometown, but I needed a break. It might be permanent. It might be temporary. Certainly it'll be through the fall and winter. And 4 years ago, today and this year, beginning in February, I campaigned for mayor of St. Paul. I walked about, over 1,000 miles. The distance from here back to St. Paul is 1,100 miles or so. So I easily walked that distance. And I met hundreds and hundreds of people. So much unhappiness and dissatisfaction. But in the end, a great majority of people didn't vote. Odd year elections back there have a habit of producing that. One of the things Mayor Carter did not support was a referendum, whereas the voters decide to move the elections to even-numbered years, which would guarantee a double or even triple turnout. Because back in St. Paul, the turnout is quite high for president and gubernatorial races. But you get into those even or odd-numbered years for city council and mayor and school board, it's low. And school board elections, thankfully, have been moved to even years now. So the process of the mayoral election being in an even-numbered year will be 3 years out now. Rather than a 4-year term, it'll be a 3-year term, and that gets us back onto track. So that's one issue that the mayor and I disagree on, and I think a lot of other people, of course. And if you go to the city's website, I think it's on the homepage. It's a photograph of the mayor, and he uses the word equity. You know, he's always preaching equity, equity, equity. Well, so much of his leadership style, his policies, his actions, they've not been equitable to the average person, not at all. And so the one reason I just gave you there was moving the elections to the even-numbered years. We'll make that number 11, but we're going to start at 1 here. And rent control was something the city council, with the mayor's support, I don't know how many years ago now, but decided to, it was important to have rent control for people. And, you know, under the guise that landlords are greedy. Well, other than the mayor, I'm not sure if any of the other city council members present or in the recent past have ever owned a rental property. And so there was a referendum, and it passed. So the rents are capped at 3%. But my question is, when the city council and the mayor every year keep raising the property tax levy 5, 6, 7, 8, 9%, sometimes higher, and the county board does the same, and the school board does the same, how does that work financially? And so it passed, and landlords had to find ways to circumvent that because otherwise they go out of business. Another ramification of rent control is it puts small operators, the small mom and pop rental property owners, it forced them out of the business. So you have larger and larger entities owning more and more rental property. And with the profit margin being squeezed, less money is going to be spent on keeping the properties upgraded. Well, there was a pushback as far as development. It nearly basically stopped, more or less, in St. Paul apartments. You know, if it didn't make financial sense. So even though the city citizens voted to have rent control and have it capped at 3% annually, the city council then voted without a referendum to give variances for properties up to, I believe it's 30 years old, certainly 20. Well, how fair is that for anybody who owns property that's older than that? That's not fair, and that's not what the public voted for. The mayor supported that effort, ladies and gentlemen, and that's not equitable. And then more recently, I believe it was earlier this year or last, I don't try to micromanage all of these statistics. Well, then they placed it for new development as well, because developers were nervous about, you know, putting up properties in St. Paul, rental properties. So again, the city council voted to amend that rent control that the citizens voted for, again without citizen input. And the mayor supported that. And again, there's a lack of equity. So the city has a habit, a long and a very strong habit. They have their ideologies, their dreams, their wishes. They have little or no real world experience in any of these endeavors themselves, but they intend to foist them upon people, you know, and they have the power to do so without thinking about the ramifications. And invariably, problems arise, and then they're always putting out fires. I could go on and on, but I'll try to keep this under 10 minutes. Number 2, Ordinance 25-02. I talked about that in the previous video. The mayor supports and the city council voted unanimously to amend the city charter to basically give itself unlimited authority to levy new fines for any ordinance violation they can think of. It's all a ruse. They're desperate for more money, ladies and gentlemen. It's being argued, you know, there can be public hearings on these things. Well, anybody who's attended any public hearing in any number or is aware of that process, a lot of it's just theater. So the mayor, I'm losing my train of thought here. Earlier, the mayor supported the city council amending the charter without a public input. That's one of my issues in the previous 10. There's no equity in that. Okay, and then there was an effort to collect signatures, which I helped at the tail end. I went out and collected 100 signatures myself, quite easily actually, and helped them get over that 2,000 signature mark. And the mayor refused to sign the petition. I happened to be there at a location, well, it was called Mancini's, visiting with some of the people leading that effort, and the mayor refused to sign it, saying he didn't sign petitions. Well, that was another strike against him in my previous 10 points video. That was one of the most democratic things you can allow and support the citizenry to do. And he refused to participate it or support it. And he will badmouth, like part of it is, well, we're going to rein in bad property owners, etc., with new fines, etc. Well, Mayor Carter has a long history of being a slumlord himself, with all due respect. A cute little house in a yard up on North Rice Street, neglected for years. And so he's out there wagging his finger at others as to why we need to clamp down on them, while he himself has been a bad property owner, and for years. I could go on and on at length about all these things, but I'm gonna keep this short. Okay. Oh, number 3 was talking about his rental. And, this is related. The Lowry Hotel, directly across from City Hall on 4th Street and Wabasha in downtown St. Paul, directly across the street, is the Lowry Apartments. And it fell into disrepair, particularly after its owner passed away, which was, I think, a year ago, April, if I'm correct. And there were many properties in this man's portfolio. I knew him Not close, but I knew him fairly well. His name is Jim Crockerell of Madison Equities, of which he'd given a number of contributions to more than one person in City Hall. But we'll leave it at that. But anyway, the building across the street from City Hall fell into disrepair. The city condemned it. Residents had to move out. This is a disgrace because the problem had been happening for years, been growing for years. And the mayor holds a big press conference, lambasting the condition of the property, and it's disgraceful, the filth, etc., while he himself had a rental property that was neglected and frankly filthy for years. And even his own home, when he moved out of it 4 years ago, I was in that neighborhood when I was campaigning for mayor, and badly neglected. I didn't know it was his home. It was in the Summit University neighborhood, not far from I-94 and Western Avenue, to be more honest, or to be more direct, near Central. I wasn't aware that was his home. It was the neighbors that told me about it, and they explained about the neglect that had been happening there for years. So there is our mayor wagging his finger at other people on how they're misbehaving, and etc., and he himself was guilty of what he's criticizing others for. I emailed him at the time he was grandstanding on this issue regarding the Lowry Hotel, and I emailed him, or Facebook message, doesn't really matter. I said, don't you have a relationship, or did you not have a relationship with the owner of the property, Mr. Crockerell? And he replied back, Facebook message, I recall now. No, he did not, and that he does not monitor the Facebook messages, etc., so he won't do a follow-up reply. Well, my follow-up question was, had he ever had a meeting or phone calls with Mr. Crockerell? Well, of course he had. So here he's grandstanding after this man's died, and his wife and his daughter are left with a monumental task on dealing with all these properties. It was, I think, very, very poor behavior. And you know, the media who elevated him during his grandstanding, they should have asked him some of these questions I brought up, but they didn't. Public transit. Public transit. When I was back in the cities running my art gallery for those 30 years, I never had a vehicle 99% of the time. I got around by bus, or I walked, biked some until somebody stole my bike, or did light rail a little bit. The behavior on the buses is far worse today than when he took office as mayor, and far, far worse than when he first became onto the city council many years ago. During his tenure as mayor, it's unthinkable. They ended up retrofitting all of the buses with clear plastic, heavy plastic security doors to basically put the drivers in a booth to protect them from assault. Isn't that moon pretty? Let's get that in there. It's going to be a half moon tonight. To protect the drivers from assault. This is absurd. And he's preaching today about, oh, crime isn't down in downtown St. Paul. Not one of those doors have been taken off of one public bus. And every bus still has them. So that's not equitable. Light rail is another topic. And light rail from the get-go, it being an honor system, which I publicly tried to educate politicians at length about, including Mayor Carter years ago, the consequences of doing honor system light rail. And there's going to end up being mass theft and crime and lots of problems associated with that. Well, we have that. And nothing's changed in the 8 years that he's been mayor. He should have dealt with it. He didn't. A sister city that put in light rail, also named St. Louis, had an honor system, and they finally came to their senses and they started retrofitting every platform with fences and gates to control access to the trains. Mayor Carter has never once spoken about the need of doing so. And you think about the thousands and thousands of people who've been victims of crime on that train, hundreds serious crimes. There have even been a number of murders on the trains or on the platforms. He never once held a press conference saying this needs to end and this is how we're going to do it. He let the problem go. Folks, that's not equitable to literally the millions of times that people have ridden those trains and suffered through those environments. It's really shameful. And then to allow children from infancy on up, that is their life, experiencing that type of antisocial behavior. And the mayor never said anything. 7. Well, yeah, we're 7 now, okay? Technically 8, but it's okay. Isn't that sky beautiful? I want to do a circle on here. You know what we had yesterday? 60-mile-an-hour winds. 30 to 40 miles an hour steady for hours yesterday. Whew. Okay, gun control, assault weapons. Mayor recently had a press conference with the mayor of Minneapolis, Mr. Fry, and others shaking their finger at people. We need to ban assault weapons. Well, when you think about what is an assault weapon, I'm carrying my walking stick. Here we go. And I mean, not negating the seriousness of the topic or putting down anybody's opinions here, but what is an assault weapon? This stick, my fist, a single action pistol, or a rifle that can shoot multiple rounds in seconds. Mayor Carter's home was broken into during the daytime, the one he used to live in. He lives now more in the southeast corner of the city, far away from a lot of the problems that have grown under his watch. Far, far away from them. Far, far away from even public transit that, with all due respect, he lectures the rest of us to take and use. But assault weapons, he wants to ban them. Okay, well, there's a Second Amendment that you can carry, own a firearm in America. I'm not dwelling on this. I mean, I'm not going to dwell on this particular topic, but the hypocrisy of him when his home was broken into, 2 firearms were stolen, 2 assault weapons, 2 firearms. As firearms are assault weapons. And they were unregistered and unsecured. And at the time, he had 4 children living in the house. They weren't home at the time. But anyone else, like when I was running for mayor back then, if my apartment had been broken into and word got out that I had 2 guns in there with no registration, they weren't secured, and I happened to have children in there, I would have been run out of town. But no, with Melvin Carter, the story was glossed over. But here he is wagging his finger with Mayor Fry the other day. We need to ban assault weapons and protect people. Well, where did his 2 guns go? We'll never know, will we? Because they were unmarked, unregistered firearms. So there's another example of him getting on a soapbox, wagging his finger at the rest of us, saying we're bad people, society's bad, and we need to listen to him when he hasn't even been, walking the walk himself. The Walmart that was in St. Paul, we had one. And it was on University Avenue, Midway area. That closed very early in his first term. He's now seeking his 3rd term. That was one of the first urban Walmarts in America to close, ladies and gentlemen. In Walmart, they're a sophisticated outfit. And I've been in that store. There had to be police there. Rampant theft. Rampant, out of control theft. They couldn't stop it. Walmart closed that store because they saw the future there is not becoming better than it was at that point. And here the mayor is today, campaigning on he's lowered crime in St. Paul. Well, it's not. And then more recently, the Lund's grocery store downtown closed. Number 1 reason, well, the reason, shoplifting. The Walgreens downtown just closed. Reason, shoplifting. The Cub Foods up near where that Walmart was in University Avenue, that just closed. Reason, shoplifting. It was so bad, ladies and gentlemen, they got rid of shopping carts. That's what I was told. I didn't confirm it. And they had baskets, or people had to carry stuff up to the counters, because so many people were taking shopping carts full of food literally out of the store without paying for it. And did the mayor ever hold one press conference talking about any of this? He did not. And he's failed society so severely by not dealing with any of these issues. He has helped create these issues, and then he talks about fixing them. Well, he's never talked about the consequences of shoplifting. And when people are allowed to shoplift, and kids, you're not helping them. And it makes it ever harder for businesses to stay in St. Paul, and so many have left. There have been CVS, drugstores, Walgreens that have closed. I could go on and on about this for a number of minutes. They have all left. This is unprecedented while he was mayor. Okay, we're at number 9. Well, I guess I covered this one already. He's had press conferences over the years to grandstand about a shooting. I mean, anytime a person is shot by a police officer, tragic, absolutely. And if the officers did something out of the line of duty that was criminal, I want them held accountable, and I'm sure everybody listening to this video would as well. But he's never had one press conference about the theft in the city, the crime in the city, the behavior on the trains, on the buses, all of the businesses that have left, Class A tenants that have left in downtown St. Paul. He's never held one press conference talking about the root causes of all these things. It's just ignored. And you know, all of these things. He talks about equity. I mean, what does that mean? Okay, so one of the poorest areas or more low-income areas in the city of the Midway, they've lost their major grocery store. They lost their Walmart. They lost their CVS. On the east side, they lost a CVS. They lost a Walgreens. So everything that's doing, behavior on the buses has become worse. Children are growing up experiencing this type of world. So many things have become worse under his leadership. And where's the equity for these people? Why don't they get to have the same type of environment that people have in a nicer neighborhood like Highland Park or Como or St. Anthony? Ordinance 2502, I'm going to get back to that, circle back on that. Vote no on it, ladies and gentlemen. He supports it. Absolutely vote no on it, ladies and gentlemen. It's a money grab. They are desperate for more cash. The revenues in the city are not keeping up with their exploding city budgets. So all they can keep doing is raising taxes. And the last thing you can do, isn't this pretty view? I'll do one more walk around here. It was about 50 today, and it was 40 walking down here. And now it's about 40 now. It's going to be below freezing by the time I get home. I got another 4 miles to walk. Yeah, Ordinance 2502, absolutely vote against it. Absolutely. It's just like the sales tax increase that I talked about in the previous video. And again, we have the highest sales tax rate in the entire state of Minnesota now, ladies and gentlemen, in St. Paul. That's bad for business. Who does that affect the most? People with lower incomes. So he talks about being a champion of those who are down and out. He's actually made things far, far worse for them. So his primary opponent, as I mentioned in the previous video, if there had been a referendum, not a referendum, excuse me, a primary, her name is Ms. Her, H-E-R. Not met the woman in person. From what I can tell, her heart's definitely in the right place. Her family came to America basically in poverty from Vietnam. And in 1 and 2 generations, through hard work and discipline, completing school, she and her family have done very well for themselves. I urge you to give her a look, and I urge you to vote for her if you can. And if you know of anybody in St. Paul who can vote, please encourage them to vote as well. It will likely be a low voter turnout, which is a shame. Those odd year elections do that, and then the enthusiasm for Mayor Carter is way down. So I'm hoping that, I'm holding the camera in a way so you can see the moon. I'm hoping that enough people there are tired. I'm sorry, his behavior, he's been such a bully on so many occasions, ladies and gentlemen. It's unprecedented. And he's never been really called out on it by the media or any civic organization. And he's been a very bad role model in so many respects, and particularly young people. And I say, I don't know, I care quite so much. I care so much. My neighbor up the road here, well, 4 miles up the road, he asked me when we saw each other a couple weeks ago when I was on that other road making the other video. He drove by. We hadn't seen each other in years. He said, Bill, why do you care so much about St. Paul and you're out here? I said, it's simply my hometown. There's nothing more to it. It's my hometown. It's a lovely place. It has been mismanaged for so many years. And I said, they have harmed so many hundreds and thousands of people, thousands and hundreds of business people with their bad policies and their bad management. And he needs to move on. He's had his time, 8 years as mayor, 6 on the city council, 14 years. The city's definitely not in better shape than when he came. And my instincts about Ms. Her, I've said this before in the other video, I don't agree with all of her policy positions, past and what she's proposing. But that's okay. We don't, politically, I'm an independent. You know, historically, I was a Democrat for many years. And to be honest, I think the Democrat Party that I'm seeing in St. Paul left me behind. It's not the Democrat Party I knew. But I'm also not a Republican. I'm a little bit of everything. I'm just a political agnostic, I call myself. And I encourage you, everyone back there who might see this, please vote and get everyone you know who lives in St. Paul, get them to vote as well. And give Ms. Her a very thorough look over. I don't think she would disappoint you. And I don't think she'll disappoint me if she wins. So thank you for your time. I'm going to do one more walk around here and pick up the pace and get home. We've had this lake all to ourselves, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. And I'll be in touch. There's going to be one more video. Cheers.